Recently, YouTube's felt hard. An endless cycle of record, edit, upload, record, edit, upload. I've fallen out of love. What was once something positive in my life has become something totally different. Videos to get views, topics I don't care about, so let's change that. Today, I want to talk about purpose. You see, purpose is strange, and these days it's become quite a confusing thing. And I think inside of this self-improvement sphere, and I won't name any names, but there's been a big interlinking of purpose with business and entrepreneurship and making money. And I think in a way that's quite toxic. And I see it in myself and I see it in other people, but basically that's what happened with me and YouTube. Something that I used to love, this kind of idea of wanting to help people, of wanting to almost change the world and affect people's lives, became business oriented. I felt like I was pushing out these videos on 7 habits to make you do this and to do that and to live a proper life, but in reality I'd lost connection with why I actually started doing this. So what is a purpose? What is an authentic purpose? And I think at its core it's a mission in life. Really what a purpose is the answer to the question of what is the meaning of life. In Japan you have this concept called ikigai, and basically what that roughly translates to is the reason to get up in the morning. That's what a purpose really is. And your purpose can be a lot of different things. It can be something as large as, I don't know, helping people, changing the world, or it can be something as small as simply being happy. And these are things that we can put into practice at a later point. But I think crucially, and what we've lost so much of, is a purpose needs to be something that you love. A purpose can't be something like making money or dropshipping. These things aren't purposeful. It needs to be something that you could do every single day for the rest of your life, something that you actually love doing. And equally you need to watch out, and I kind of fell foul of this, but you need to watch very carefully that your purpose doesn't actually become combined with these things like making money. These kind of Epicurean, unnatural desires of wealth and fame and power. Your purpose needs to stay separate from those desires so that you don't become alienated from it. That's, I think, how purpose works. So how do you find that purpose? And a lot of what we've spoken about in this self-improvement sphere, and I've also kind of put forward this framework as a framework, but is ikigai. And ikigai is a great foundation, but there are a couple of problems with it. If you don't know what it is, just very briefly, ikigai is you ask yourself the 4 questions. Do I love it? Am I good at it? Does it make money? And can it change the world? Help people in the world. But I think there are a few problems with ikigai as a framework, a few assumptions that it kind of makes that aren't right. And the first assumption is that you already have a list of things that you're choosing between. For ikigai to work, you need to have a list of a lot of different things that you want to do. And secondly, it makes the assumption that you already have to be good at a thing for it to become your purpose. And this is already so problematic because, well, what I find is that people that lack a purpose, people that don't know what they want to do in their lives, they don't have a list of things that they can choose between. If anything, that's a good problem to have so many different options that you have to sort of decide on which one fits the ikigai criteria. But for so many people, there's nothing. The ikigai list is completely blank. So the first logical step then is to learn a bit more about yourself. Socrates says it, he says, know thyself. He says, an unexamined life isn't worth living. So that right there is the first logical step. It's to take some time to be introspective, to look into yourself and ask yourself what you really want to do in this life. And that's pretty profound. It's quite a hard step to really take action on, but the real advice is exactly that. It's sit down in a room for 1 or 2 days or however long it takes, and to turn off your phone and to turn off this YouTube video and to turn off all of these distractions and just sit there with a pen and a paper maybe and ask yourself, what do I actually want to do in this life? What things might I enjoy? Maybe it is helping people, changing the world. Try and be concrete with it. And this sounds like a hard thing, but it's very important. And in reality, it's one of the most important few days you'll ever spend because it will set a direction and a motion for the rest of the life that you live. I think there's this thing at the moment, especially amongst young people, where we sort of say, you're too young now, you don't need to have it all figured out. And up to a point, that's true. If you're 12 or 13 watching this, you don't need to have it figured out. But it helps. It sure fucking helps to have it figured out. And if it's an option between either not figuring it out or being able to figure it out, I definitely choose the second option, because it will give you direction in your life. What I like to say is, to live an exceptional life, you need to live an exceptional life. And what that basically means to me is try new things. I think so many people these days don't really try anything new. What we do is we spend all of our time watching YouTube and scrolling on our phones and waiting for something to come to us to pull us out of that thing. But in reality, that's the wrong way of looking at it. Purpose doesn't come to you. You need to find your purpose. And so try new things. So stop with all the fucking whatever, social media, with YouTube, and actually start trying new things, trying new hobbies, trying coding, guitar, skateboard like this bad boy here. And some of them don't stick, right? So this skateboard is a perfect example of it. I've used it maybe 3 or 4 times, but that doesn't really matter. I bought a cello for £500 that I played 3 times and then sold a week later. I made my money back, don't worry. But these are the things that you need to do in your life. Coding as well. I remember back in the day I wanted to learn how to code. I tried it for 2 weeks and it didn't work. But that's okay. You need to try new things because one day one of them will stick. And another example is this guitar. It was another thing that I tried, and now every day I still play it. It's become something that I love. Or YouTube. I tried it. I turned on the camera. I made 90 videos for 90 days. And I decided that it's something that I love. Something that I want to pursue for the rest of my life, to keep on doing. And so try these things. And then the other problem that we had with Ikigai was this assumption of being good. And this kind of lends to something different. It's called a growth mindset. It's the idea that effectively talent doesn't really exist. No one is naturally good at anything, right? It all comes from being extremely dedicated and hardworking in anything. I like to say this, but if I really wanted to, right now, in 2 years' time, I could run an ultramarathon through Death Valley. I could. You know, these are the things, right? So it's not about talent. It's not about already being good at something. It's about having the mindset that you can achieve anything. Because in reality, you can. You can go back to school, study new A-levels, go to night school, go to university, get a degree that you want. You can do all of these things. You can do everything as long as you have the growth mindset to do that. You know what it is? It's the rat race, and the idea of the rat race is a myth, bro. Because it's founded on the assumption that everyone is suffering. That everyone is suffering so much through this rat race and their rats and all of this. But it's not true. And if you look for a second, if you step back for 1 second and look at your life and you look at the people around you, there isn't real suffering there, there's actual beauty. When I sit on the train and I see all of these people, each living their own unique lives, texting on their phones and talking to all these people, I don't see suffering. I see a beautiful thing. And so the rat race is a myth because there is no real suffering in a rat race life if you don't just stop and look at it. There's this fantastic book that I like. It's called Steppenwolf by Hermann Hesse. And spoiler alert, but it basically tells the story of this guy who is totally disillusioned with the world. And he's disillusioned it for other reasons, right? It's not because he sees everyone as rat race people. But he sees the whole world as kind of like degenerate and devoid of true passion and beauty and all of these things. Very similar to a lot of the rhetoric we hear today in the self-improvement sphere about the West is falling and all this bollocks. And what happens at the end of that book, essentially, is Mozart comes to him in a dream, of all people, and he slaps him in the fucking face and he says, listen mate, you're doing this wrong. Stop complaining about the fact that the radio sounds shit and start appreciating the fact that you can actually hear my beautiful music on the radio. If you stop for a second and actually look at your life, if you actually look at the lives of the people around you, you will realise it is not suffering. You are not suffering through this rat race. There is beauty and there is joy and there is pleasure everywhere. You just need to pause for a second and see it. So look at purpose, for example, right? And say what you want to do is you want to help young people. So kind of like me, I really want to help young people in this world to fulfill themselves and to achieve everything they want to achieve in this life. But that doesn't mean you have to do it through entrepreneurship and through business. The problem with these rat race ideas is that they say you need to be an entrepreneur to achieve everything. But what is actually wrong with the traditional method, the script, like MJ DeMarco says? Nothing. If you want to study hard at school, if you want to go and become a teacher, a lecturer, you will help hundreds of people. It's as simple as that. And fine, do your purpose on the side, your business on the side. Make YouTube videos on the side while you're doing those things, but it's not one or the other. It's not, I'm going to work as a barista while grinding really hard on YouTube to fulfill my purpose. No, you can do both of them. You can do it through the script, through the traditional ways of doing it. You can also try a purpose, but don't try and force your purpose to make you money. Your business isn't there to fulfill your purpose. You should be doing that in every aspect of your life anyway. So a piece of advice, especially for the young kids that are watching this right now, is don't listen to these self-improvement YouTubers like Hamza, who tell you that what you should really be doing is just grinding really hard, head down, like just gunning for it, bro, and just putting all your effort into entrepreneurship and business in order to free yourself while suffering in the rest of your life and having these fuck this existence moments. The things that he says sometimes are kind of crazy, man, and him, but I mean self-improvement space generally. This idea that if you get too comfortable, you won't be able to free yourself anymore. But this is the purpose of life, man. If you're telling me that the way that you free yourself is by being so unhappy, by suffering so much that you have no other choice but to pursue entrepreneurship and business, for me, you're doing it wrong. Pursue a business, but pursue it from a place of genuine passion and purpose, while also living a full life around it. You see, it's not a plan B. The traditional approach is not a plan B. It gives you things that entrepreneurship might not. And there is something to be said for that. I mean, there is security inside of it. There's friendship and community. You're meeting real people when you go into these workplaces. There isn't necessarily anything wrong with a standard job, with a standard path in life, with the traditional approach, by following the script. It's not a plan B. It's a plan A that encompasses both. And then finally, one last thing I'll say on the topic is that purpose can be something more ephemeral, right? So for a lot of people and for a long time, and I think actually one of the most important purposes for a young person to have, especially when they're at that early stage of trying to figure out what they want to do in their lives. And if you don't have a purpose, use this one for a little bit. But your purpose can just be something like happiness. That can be a very good purpose, especially early on. Just living a life where your purpose is just to be as happy as you possibly can. By asking yourself, okay, what makes me happy? What things can I do that improve my quality of life? And just putting aside 2 to 3 years where you devote yourself to just fulfilling that core criteria of happiness. That is such an important thing to do. And it's a purpose that you can take into your life. You see, purpose doesn't need to be something external, changing the world, making money, all of these things. A purpose for a lot of people, and I think something that people don't quite understand, it can be an internal thing, like happiness or joy. There's this idea in ancient Greek philosophy called eudaimonia, which essentially translates to kind of human flourishing or happiness. And for the ancient Greeks, their entire system of philosophy was based around that. The purpose of life for a lot of these Hellenistic schools, like Stoicism, that we all like so much in the self-improvement sphere, was in fact to live a happy and tranquil life. It wasn't to achieve external goals through a purpose. So thanks for watching the video, boys, and this is going to be a bit ironic, but in terms of purpose, I do run a paid community. It helps the channel out a lot. So if you want to join that, we do 2 chats a week. We do one kind of weekly lecture on a more in-depth self-improvement topic, and we also do a book club every month. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, join the group, man. I'd love to see you in there. Manifest excellence. I'm proud of you, brother.